I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996 I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
We're both in skull and bone, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go on.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322.
I sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russert, collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I am a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Welcome back, Are You Deadheads, to your favorite weekly live call-in conspiracy show, Are You Dead, with your favorite hosts, Austin Wade Picard and Jose Galison, on the usual time, Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Got Jacob showing up. He'll be here in a little bit in the back, so him as well as our third seat at times. But yeah, crazy week. I have plenty of lore that I'm ready to dig in with you, my friend. It's always fun to kind of reconnect new dot or connect different dots, figure new things out. And it seems every time we come back to these different topics, this keeps on occurring. So a pleasure to be with you, my friend. I am ready to pick your brain on some nerd shit. How about you?
Oh, yeah. Man, this is what I honestly bide my time waiting for, just in terms of the emotional outlet, I guess, as far as the release in a way from the week's demoralization media cycle. So yeah, I'm always ready to go schizo with you, my friend. And I think I saw Donald Trump Jr. Did you see this? That he married basically the daughter of Epstein's accountant. I thought it was just so crazy because I wanted to confirm that was actually the case. And I went and found that this Bettina Anderson, her father was Harry Loy Anderson Jr., who was a Palm Beach banker, maintained accounts for Jeffrey Epstein, and even wrote a 1999 letter describing him as a, quote, gentleman of the highest integrity to help secure him tax breaks, right? And I just think it's crazy because it like further cements just this level of kind of I don't know, influence that is underlying and not very much acknowledged by definitely any sort of like legitimate media outlets due to the Mockingbird media nature that we all are very much aware of. But yeah, so just so happens to be, you know, that Epstein used his Palm Beach bank and you know, obviously the claim is 100% verified. So I just think that's very worthwhile, in understanding that apparently he was also, this is like the youngest bank president in the U.S. at age 26 in 1970, this Harry Loy Anderson Jr. And he served as president of Palm Beach National Bank and Trust Company. And basically, after writing this letter to the U.S. Virgin Islands Industrial Development Commission to help Epstein secure the tax break for his company linked to his properties, including Little St. James.
Give me a character statement.
Yeah, exactly. And he essentially, Anderson's bank from the early 90s fully on the record with testimony-based reports and things suggesting that essentially the bank was also used in transactions connected to Epstein's criminal activities. So I just think where there's smoke, there's fire, obviously. And knowing that Donald Trump claimed that he's not going to Donald Trump Jr.'s wedding ceremony, right?
But, he's someone I know very well. I've known him for a long time. Those are, I think it's a rough paraphrase of what he said. I don't think he ended up making an attendance. But another story that broke in that same vein, maybe not quite as tight-knit as his son, and maybe not quite on the nose as an Epstein connection, but it's quite there. His former campaign manager recently, there was an expose this week about him funneling millions of dollars from essentially, and being a FARA registered agent now. So it's on the up and up, but I from my understanding, but he is essentially Trump's former campaign manager, is now on the, officially funneling millions of dollars for Israeli propaganda into the United States. And then to put the cherry on top, one of those said groups receiving money for under this umbrella is actually the Charlie Kirk show. So or TPUSA. Actually, I don't know if it's a show or TPUSA, since ours are different, but one of the two. I think it might be the show. Since that would make sense for the
sense, right? The genealogical factor involved here as well, with the overall scope of the enterprise and the network we're speaking on. Like, I've never been more convinced. These are very much overlapping, compartmentalized networks of a sexual blackmail operation. That's very well entrenched. And
I've never been more convinced that Charlie Kirk is chilling in a cabana in Patagonia and in Argentina, in a niche micro state with Peter Thiel sucking off little Thai boys.
I'm starting to wonder, man. And we just talked privately because I saw a post from like an hour ago that showed Jared Kushner basically just reaffirming what we sort of already in many ways speculated in terms of this ridiculous Mediterranean island that they're essentially setting up Kushner and Ivanka. And apparently Kushner decides to admit that it was his friend Nat Rothschild who actually was the one who helped him find his new off-the-grid private island in the middle of the Mediterranean while he's on a boat, on his boat on vacation. He essentially said that Kushner basically had a private meeting on Rothschild's boat with Albania's prime minister. So I don't know. It just feels like the life of the, just in terms of like the very overly, it's the aristocratic families and the well-privileged that seem to have this strange benefit of a direct line to any type of prominent figure that they need to sort of negotiate with to some extent. But it shows Jared Kushner's, level of prominence as well in many ways, I think. Just, we all know what that private island will inevitably be used for. At least I don't think there's much doubt.
Libel.
Yeah, exactly. For real. But anyway.
Well, I think one of the big things, I don't know why you were chomping at the bit when we were, setting up the show today. Kind of like, hey, what do you want to talk about? And you're like, race war, race war, race war, race war. I'm like, whoa. And like, I know I run a morning show, and I do tend to try to keep things light and have fun, and I'm known for having crass humor. So you would think this would be something that'd be right up my alley, and I already would have looked into this recent. I believe it was stabbing over in England or something, somehow racially motivated. While you would think that, typically my inclinations is very much, I guess, like alien stories, like race war stuff. I kind of immediately turn me off. It's just kind of like lowbrow something or other, but you either are just really, really love the racial animosity, or maybe you saw some substance here, Austin. I'm not sure which. Either way, I can dig it.
I think this is sort of the long march through the institutions in a way, and a reflection of what cultural Marxism has kind of, been able to achieve in a real way. And just in regard to this woke mind virus and kind of what should be prioritized. And, as far as especially law enforcement responding to a crime scene. I mean, to have it legitimately come to fruition and surface in that context is disturbing, and in many ways it's a reflection on what's to come. And that's what's so just in a way, I think something we should be very much concerned with. Just the dystopian tiptoe is only going to inevitably find its way to the West, and so I don't think that this will only be isolated to the UK for very long. And I'm pretty sure we have many examples of this.
Real quick, let's back up and give the bullet points, because I forget who it was, what exactly happened. I know I've seen it come across my feed a couple times. Some stabbing victim in the UK, some sort of racially motivated something or other, and but go on.
So, and by the way, Tara Jackson just said in the chat, who else thinks that the police shouldn't show up to anything unless they're called kind of like firemen? You don't know how many times I've made that statement to my own mother, and just people that I very much love and respect. And I'm just trying to kind of encourage them to reflect on even their concept of what law enforcement, or even, any of the, what is it? Protect and serve. Okay. We're legitimately providing them with taxpayer dollars to harass us on a daily basis, and instead of honestly, with integrity and morally, respond to a legitimate crime, right, worthy of police attention. But this very much was worthy of police attention. But for the response to have been kind of philosophically exposed in this way, you have Henry Nowak, who's this 18-year-old university student, fatally stabbed December 3rd of last year. And the reason it's just now kind of surging into the spotlight is because the police body cam footage has finally been released, and it's caused a lot of just not overreaction, just emotional reaction. And I think it fits the crime. Yeah. But
which, to be clear, I know I guess you could almost look at it as downplaying. I guess I'm just kind of adverse. I don't really feel like usually it's typically much to be offered in the way of commentary of these sorts of stories, but it is an appalling from what I understand of what happened. That this guy basically, because there was some insinuation of racism, they essentially kind of behaved in an incredibly biased way and let this man essentially bleed out in the back of a cop car.
I mean, he didn't even make it to the cop car, which is crazy, but anyway, I mean, this was in Southampton by Vikram Digwa, right, who used a 21 centimeter, 8-inch ceremonial knife, which is strange. Ritual, anyone? Who knows?
Yeah.
Things are performative more than you would like to believe, as much as people don't think it's possible to essentially.
I would also want to see that. Like, what the fuck do you mean?
Yeah, I'm with you. What does that even mean? It's probably a steak knife or some shit. Yeah,
maybe had a cool little design of the hilt or something.
Right. I know. I instantly go to a blood ritual sacrifice, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. But anyway, obviously, Dig was later found guilty of murder, but he falsely claimed that Nowak had attacked him with racial abuse, right? And so this,
he attacked him. He said he attacked him with racial.
I'll tell you, it's crazy.
Okay,
and this is the name of Hampshire Constabulary is who officially arrested and handcuffed Henry Nowak in his final moments after being fatally stabbed by this Vikram Digwa. And so police acted on Digwa's false claim when responding to the crime scene that Nowak had racially abused and assaulted him, leading officers to treat Henry Nowak, who's the dying victim, as a suspect rather than providing immediate medical attention. So my instant question is clearly, you always provide medical attention when the authorities arrive on the scene, whether it's a perpetrator or not, because obviously you hope to spare the perpetrator so they can face justice in some sort of real accountable way, which we know that's a utopian world that we do not exist in, unfortunately. We just hope that would be the case more often than not. And doesn't seem to be that way. But anyway, they ignored the pleas while he's lying face down and bleeding. Nowak repeatedly told the officers he had been stabbed and could not breathe. One officer even responded, "I don't think you have," which it was just so strange seeing the reaction of the officers. They drag him across the gravel while he's face down, forcing his hands behind his back as he's unable to breathe and bleeding to death. and read him his rights for assault before he collapsed unconscious 3 minutes later. So the officer, obviously, you had official apologies from multiple police officers who were at the scene for stating they were responding to a complicated and confusing situation based on the killer's lies. And but yeah, basically the judicial ruling was that
real quick, I don't want to cut you off, but someone in our chat, Jared, he gave a little more extra context on that ceremonial aspect. He said the guy was a Sikh, and they carry a kirkut, which is, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, which is a religious dagger legally. Because actually, it dawned on me after he said it that we are talking about a UK story, and like knives, I think, are like, they have knife control over there. So like when you hear ceremonial knife, you're kind of like, whoa, what does that mean? And then also like, it may not be a spook, that could just be some sort of way to have a carve out to carry legally, which is, being as a Sikh, it's a religious dagger, so they're able to carry it legally when other folks can't carry a knife. And he's saying they have 5 symbols associated with them: the turban, the silver bangle, their kirkut, and he forgets the other 2 things. I think that's just generally Sikh. But yeah, I guess the knife was even more to add to the sinister nature of the state, is that, you know, other people literally aren't even able to carry fucking knives. Yeah. And this guy has some sort of carve out because he's some third worlder with a religion from afar. So,
and that's the other thing is this. You would have to think this would instantly sort of escalate any kind of immigration reaction to the immigration policies within the UK itself, from these mass importations, essentially of Middle Easterners who are basically fleeing from war-torn countries due to our foreign policy consequences. But you know, I think that is definitely the case in terms of violence being, I mean, just the reaction to like a soccer game victory in Paris the other day. You saw that, right? The streets of Paris on fire. The Eiffel Tower was smoking. Yeah, it was burning. And this is a celebration. It looked like pandemonium in the streets. Like it looked like mass civil unrest is what it looked like. And so I in no way do I, you know, view the totalitarian measures of the authoritarian government in the UK as like a legitimate response. But when you cause this escalation and this kind of cultural clash to essentially take place, and then you wonder why, you know, and implement authoritarian measures on the back of this, it's problem, reaction, solution. This is the definition to a T. So. But the judicial ruling, as I was mentioning, is just the fact that while Nowak's handcuffed, you know, basically Nowak's death while handcuffed was a direct consequence of Digwa's dishonesty, noting that Nowak was defenseless and that the killer's claims of racism were fabricated. So it's been officially ruled by the judge as a fabricated sort of racial, you know, falsehood. That and racial motivated attack, allegedly, that the killer himself had just falsified. But this is the footage of the body cam that just surfaced. Just for anyone,
I'm glad we cleared that up, because if he had hard, it might be a different it might be a different story here. It might be like, maybe it was justified.
Right.
That's obviously a joke, people. But, yeah.
Right. Like I'm very curious just to know what the alleged falsified you know, comments and details of that claim were, because I would imagine it's somewhat entertaining, but the consequences alone kind of rule out the comedic value in a way.
I'm really tempted, because I said before the show, like, how are we going to cover this without me going into like full on Tower Gang mode, because it is kind of hilarious, but same time, I am still fresh on a strike, so
right.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't need to be dropping hard R's, but it's like all the elements are there. It's perfect joke. It's not even like I could do it. Anyway,
yeah, an in-tower in the chat can definitely. Oh man, check this out though. This is fascinating.
My dad's talking about that. Right. He keeps dropping side to side, so I'm just trying to keep him set up. All right. He's got a mouthful of blood. I don't want him. He was on the bin on the other side of this gate. He's jumped over these fences and stuff like that. And he's up here.
Away, mate.
He's obviously he's fallen from there and he slipped from there. There's other shooters left over there, mate.
What's your name, mate? Huh? Has anyone been hurt other than him?
Yeah, me. He's grabbed my brother. He's took my turban off. Started grabbing my head.
Are you injured?
Yeah, I've got swollen eye, little bruise.
Alright, just step back a little bit for me. Someone flag these down. Right, let's get you out of there, shall we? Oh.
Very clearly said, "I've been stabbed."
Grab his other arm. What's happened to you, alright? You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? I don't think you have, mate.
Did you say, "I think you have"? You've been stabbed?
I don't think you have, mate. Is basically what he said, yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I don't see any of the stab wounds.
Put the hand in the cuff, mate.
Not like he's obviously bleeding out either. Like, I'm sure the layers of clothing are soaking into the blood.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think you'd look, though. But knife wounds can be tricky like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not much more than this, obviously. You just see him essentially bleed to death.
I know, but we have to check, don't we? In the face?
In the face?
Is
she talking to the perpetrator? That's what I'm wondering.
Keep you on your side, mate. You better retrieve then. Saying to him, keeping him on his side. We were sat up when we had him here, but he didn't like it. What's your name, mate? At the moment, you are under arrest. That's for assault. So you do not have to say anything, may harm in defence. If you do not mention one question, it's up to which you later rely in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence, all right? It's going to be sick, I think.
Going to be sick? He legitimately dies 3 minutes later.
Yeah.
He could.
I just want you to call it.
Yeah,
that's basically it. There's really no more to it. But
you'd think they'd like lift up clothing, look around. I mean, I don't know what the rules are if they're not allowed to, like, I guess maybe the concern would be not touching on people or like consent, but like, I mean, I don't know. But definitely seems like it should have been handled differently, but I mean, I guess it doesn't seem as charged as people are acting like online. It seems more like along the lines of incompetence or something like that.
Definitely. Yeah. It's definitely not how you should respond to any crime scene whatsoever. And I guess how are they to have known that he was stabbed other than the fact that he continued to mention he had been stabbed? So who knows? We weren't effectively there. I could only hear him mention that or utter that basically one time. I don't know. It was hard to kind of make out everything that was being said, but anyway, it's just another example, right, of kind of the dystopian consequence of just government policies at large, right, and kind of also that very concept of the philosophy of this kind of woke mind virus and the long march to the institution of cultural Marxism. So that was just another example, unfortunately, and I would imagine, whenever it comes down to even as extraordinary as like layering in the concept of that 23andMe CIA, right, alleged operation,
the alien story,
right, where this guy's hunting for human hybrids basically and claiming they're like these Scandinavian people in Colorado who are very tall and have been lied to about their ancestry. It's very interesting. The guy's like a complete and total nerd as well. It's kind of hilarious. I think he's a science fiction writer, and he basically claims that he spoke with a retired U.S. Army sergeant who served as a psychic spy and revealed all of this to him, including being a part of this government secret program to hunt down individuals with extraterrestrial DNA. And just listening to the guy is it seems like the type that would make that sort of incredible allegation is the only way I will say it. But the point I'm making is in a world where the government would exploit that to their own benefit, right, and not rule that out, you could imagine where people actually begin to believe years from now, maybe less than that, when this propaganda begins to actually take root and affect, fully influence the minds of people, to actively kind of embrace new dystopian measures. Imagine a world where people do believe, after a blue beam staged right, a psychological operation, that we have extraterrestrials or human hybrids among us, right? Well, then what? Who would imagine ruling out the idea that the government would exploit that to effectively not only have anti-tech extremists, right, as a new classification of potential domestic terrorists, but man, any sort of schizo could basically be a human half-breed of some kind, and kind of categorized in some strange, disingenuous way. But anyway, that's just me kind of ranting. I just thought it was funny.
So we just talked a little bit about modern race war. There's something I've been actually want to talk to you for weeks now, and I just kept forgetting to bring it up. Well, maybe not weeks, maybe like a couple of weeks. I think I just forgot about it last week. But they're a little bit of a. I was hoping we could wait till Jacob showed up. He's not here yet, but oh well. Because he's actually the one who told me a while back, and I think we've talked about this in the show in the past. The lore on on Operation Shalom or Project Shalom or whatever, which I believe was some sort of operation of which we don't know much specifics about, that occurred on the same land that later the Jim Jones and his cult ended up residing in. And so me and you have picked that, kind of dug into that lore a little bit, and kind of that's weird. Operation Shalom. There's even the additional connection that I believe Westbrook was involved in that in Operation Shalom, he's connected to the SLA. So this kind of connects all these different. He was also a Green Beret. Green Berets were a huge part of the story in Jonestown. Furthermore, I just recently found, and thanks to RJ Morrow, and this is something I think I've kind of known a little bit about before, but I guess I just kind of re-honing in on. But was also, I guess, like a neighboring town called a hill town near, it's around the same general area as Jonestown. It's just founded by somebody named Rabbi Hill. And he's an interesting character. And he looks like he's basically running essentially a sister organization to what's going on with Jim Jones at the same time. He seemed to be involved in some of the cleanup and after the incident. He also has strange connections to some other weird civil rights leaders, relatives, deaths. It's a weird world we live in. So I guess I'll just pass it off to you, Austin, wherever you want to pick into all of this, because I believe me and you did a series on this forever ago. You've done an episode on it, so I guess for those who want to dig in more, there's plenty to dig into. But yeah, so this is, I guess, the information you won't find in that stuff that we're talking about right now. But I know, any of your thoughts on any of those different strings of connections, because it's hard for one not to notice a small hat, even if it's just symbolically connected there. We have Operation Shalom, we have somebody going by a rabbi, and even with that rabbi group, it's a very similar demographic as is going in Jonestown, and even more to the race war stuff. The same group that over in Hilltown, as opposed to Jonestown, they have the same thing. It's a huge black group, and I believe it's a similar thing where you have a white guy running it, and then I think kind of like an inner cadre of white people as well. So just a lot going on there for pattern recognizers. You should be like fucking pinging like Spider-Man right before he's about to get hit by a pumpkin bomb by Green Goblin or something. Like, right. You should be pinging. So like, I can't. I almost feel like it's silly to even point out the patterns because it's just so like in your face. So I don't know, wherever you want to go with that, bud. Because I shared that little tidbit to you a while ago. I think you knew that already, but it's right. It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely an ulterior motive happening here, that much more than the scope of just the People's Agricultural Project in Jonestown and what would effectively become. Because, I mean, mainly it was basically the use of the land to establish a training camp for mercenaries headed by Philip Blakey, right? Who's basically from this wealthy aristocratic family. And he had come to the U.S. basically after meeting at boarding school and then marrying Deborah Layton, right? Who, if you remember, Deborah Layton, obviously she's a fascinating individual in her own right. And she was, I mean, her Blakey's father-in-law and Deborah Layton's father was Dr. Lawrence Layton, which we talked about many different times, right? And he's basically the former chief of biochemistry and director of chemical warfare at the U.S. Army Dugway Proving Ground in Utah in the early 50s. And he even worked as a research scientist at the Western Regional Research Laboratory for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Berkeley. So the exact same place where essentially Colston Westbrook brought Phoenix home. And basically, not only was Donald C.Q. DeFreeze at Vacaville his one of his primary clients, right, and well, victims and test subjects, I guess you could say, assets. But you know, he effectively even manufactured the symbol that the SLA would adopt in the 8-headed serpent or snake, I believe it was, which has a very interesting kind of just background in its own right as far as what it represents symbolically. Kind of very much a cult, right? And it makes a lot of sense. If I remember, it connects back to the Kabbalah, of course. So there shouldn't be much, you know, as far as I don't know, doubt about that connection. But what I think is interesting is that basically you have you have Blakey and there was a CIA agent by the name of Frank Turple who admitted in an interview at one point that he was supplying mercenaries and arms to the early stages of Jonestown in the mid 70s. And this is when the jungle camp was used as a CIA training center for the Angolan rebels at the time. And keep in mind, right, that it's fascinating that the fact that basically, apparently at the hour of the massacre at the People's Temple Pavilion, right, and the revolutionary mass suicide or mass murder, you have key members of the temple's armed guard. They essentially were ordered to be on board the temple ship that was named the Cudjoe, right? And apparently this was for an alleged supply run, but it was very convenient timing, obviously. And this is when George Philip Blakey, who is CIA agent and you know, was basically working for UNITA as a cutout for running the Angolan rebel mercenary project. And this was apparently on behalf of Henry Kissinger himself, who had ordered this to apparently be conducted. I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but it's the way in which it's been recorded, right, by some legitimate, reliable sources. But you have basically George Philip Blakey, who had previously worked for Unitas in Angola, phoning his father-in-law, Dr. Lawrence Layton, which is, I think, the entire reason why they had that state-of-the-art medical facility that was there before the People's Agricultural, you know, project actually would move to the property, and I think it was because obviously they had Thorazine and just a ridiculous
pharmaceuticals for like a city.
Yeah, they said they could legitimately dose the entire population of Georgetown, I believe it was, the capital of Guyana. But you had basically, he gives his father-in-law a phone call, right? And this is as the revolutionary mass suicide takes place, and he takes these key temple's member armed guards with him to board the Cudjoe, the temple ship. And he calls his father-in-law from Panama to inform Dr. Lawrence Layton of what had happened just after the massacre. So you have just instant, you know, communication being had here. And at least 10 members of the temple remained on the boat and set up a new community in Trinidad, while Nigel Slinger, apparently a Grenada businessman, insurance broker for Jonestown, he repaired the Cudjoe, which was this massive vessel. It was like 400 tons. And then you had basically these People's Temple members who have been named, and George Blakey setting up an open house in Grenada with a few others. And McCann spoke about starting a shipping company to, quote, finance the continued work of the original temple. So that work obviously included some strange operation involving the mental hospital in Grenada that seemed to elude government security by promising free medical care, apparently. It sounds like this was another avenue to procuring victims, right? Is what it became. And so imagine programming those people and then, oh my God, they joined a cult. It's like,
and it sounds crazy, but they do the show. I was just covering this morning another similar crazy thing. It was a story, I forget the name, the guy's name was like Boaz or something. I covered this morning, some South American country that essentially there was an abduction that occurred. Essentially, someone who was abducted, and he ended up having this crazy alien story, and then come to find out, much later, there were reports of the CIA operating in that area. And I forget the specifics of how you found out that it looks like there were reports of a very similar occurrence to that happening. And so this guy has this very detailed, story, of him being like taken up into this spacecraft, something attached to his chin, blood coming out, there being an alien woman that he copulates with, et cetera, et cetera. This UFO that comes and brings him up. All he really sees is a light in the sky. And then come to find out, like, according to them, they like hit the guy with some sort of gas of some sort and just kind of swung down on a helicopter. It's implied perhaps there were a bunch of other lights maybe added to it or something. And then I guess they have some sort of specialized room that they actually have for something like this that they brought him to. And so there's just kind of the idea that like perhaps this like hodgepodge of like hallucinogens. And it's like the same exact time the MK Ultra stuff is occurring. So it's kind of this like dual purpose thing, obviously, where there is like the Mirage Men aspect of it, the Men in Black aspect, these like disinformation agents in regards to alien researchers. But at the same time, they're also like, hey, may as well get two birds stoned. And they're like, let's do some MK Ultra research, hit them with some hallucinogens and see if we can induce some odd experiences from this guy. So,
and I honestly think that's why there were a few different examples of potential Manchurians among the survivors leaving Jonestown and basically being reprogrammed after they came back to the U.S. stateside. One of them being a young child who I believe was potentially responsible for murdering his own parents, who, were possible whistleblowers, future whistleblowers, who were basically considering going on the record with what they believe did take place in Guyana, and that's a very strange account, honestly, as far as just that case in general. It really fascinated me, and it in a way made me think that there was far more as far as like controlled test groups in Guyana itself at the People's Temple property, that I think they were potentially just kind of experimenting. What happens if we turn this group into Manchurian candidates and program them with potential marching orders in the future? And then obviously green light, go whenever the moment comes. And it was in the form of, I believe it was the murder of Al and Jeannie Mills. That was the case. And they joined the People's Temple in like 1969 and rose to like prominent positions within the group, right? Had responsibilities with the church, and essentially they served as head of the temple's publications office. And I think one of the members was the official photographer. But in 1974, the Mills took their family, left the church. And this is after Jones beat their daughter, Linda, 70 times with a wooden paddle, right? For allegedly having a friend who Jim suspected as a traitor to the group. So they like changed their names to avoid the power of attorney they had earlier given Jim Jones, and became two of basically the most vocal critics at the time. And so they were already very much outwardly spoken, but they weren't necessarily blowing the whistle to authorities in ways that would effectively lead to an investigation, of any kind. But I think this led to them joining the group of concerned relatives that obviously were pleading to Congressman Leo Ryan that something needed to be done, and someone had to go down there for oversight, at least to some extent, to get a pulse on what exactly was happening and what the people were claiming, obviously, who were still in Guyana. And it wasn't very long till Congressman Leo Ryan obviously realized that after being passed a note in private, secretly, that they were all very much desperate to get the hell out of there. So I think that alone, at least there was a major faction within the group that weren't entirely programmed enough to be willingly, I guess, enduring their fate or just walking voluntarily into that kind of consequence. But anyway.
Real quick, just one thing before it escapes my mind, something that came to me because I brought up this, made me think of it with like the alien, the like kind of the disinfo / MK Ultra overlap there. A similar such thing you will see. I mean, you could see this being the same principle being applied to like religious experiences, and there definitely are examples of this in the parapolitical world we've definitely talked about. And so I'm actually kind of I'm just questioning you here if you recall, because I vaguely recall, you have a better grip of Jonestown than I do, but I vaguely recall some sort of attempts of coaxing into beliefs of supernatural powers by Jim or those above him. So I'm wondering, does that ring a bell? Because, I mean, with these hallucinogenic drugs they would have on hand, and then also some sort of trying to be convincing of supernatural acts, that would be very much similar to kind of like the alien story I gave, but obviously coming from more of a spiritual angle. And this would kind of make sense that they may be using this for some sort of MK Ultra test bed of sorts.
Right. Yeah. I mean, beyond his sort of ability to perform these kind of miracles, I guess you could say, there wasn't a whole lot of like extraterrestrial mentioning and that I stumbled upon as far as his teachings or lectures and sermons. It was very strange because he would have them kind of listen to military news radio from like it would be like past recordings that it wasn't necessarily happening in the moment, and he would have them overly emotional, like outwardly reacting to like pandemonium happening in the US, essentially this mass civil unrest that he was predicting, and in reality it was just like recorded news video that he was segments that he was particularly isolating and presenting to them to kind of stoke this fervor within the group itself, and also reinforce the fact that they had left and fled at the right time in a way. And so I'm not entirely certain as far as the more extraterrestrial phenomena that he would weave into any of his philosophy, but it felt a lot more like it was this revolutionary Marxism of some kind that he, in a real way. And I think it was very much a doomsday prophecy that he was preaching. Right, so he was essentially kind of in almost the same vein of David Koresh in a way, not saying that they're any just in any way directly similar, but just as far as the doomsday prophecy in general, it was almost as if the people and the group themselves would have to face the karmic consequence, right, in a way, but so they almost all expected this kind of overwhelming kind of end result and in a very, I think, violent context, because even listening to the tapes from the moments just before the revolutionary mass suicide, they're like trying, if you remember that one woman who's like pleading with Jim, you said that we could essentially call the Russians and tell them a secret code, and they would transport us out of here, and we could flee to Russia and seek refuge, from their enemies, I guess, because Jim Jones was claiming that basically the U.S. government and former members of the People's Temple and all these people were out for out for blood, basically, really, not justice in his mind. But just to finish that point, though, because I did mention, and then I'll get back and kind of end with just the Shalom connection to all of this, right, with Blakey and the mercenary project, and kind of, it's very interesting. But you had basically just 15 months after the Jonestown massacre, and keep in mind, Alan Jeannie Mills were very much like active. They were among the most vocal and were engaging in activism as far as attempting to bring attention to legitimately exposing Jonestown and Jim Jones himself. And so this was like, I think she spoke in front of like college campuses and public meetings and things of that nature. She wrote a book as well. But anyway, she goes on to basically talk about, that she essentially whenever she was dealing with the authorities, right, trying to essentially, force an investigation to take place, she said basically it was like signing her own death warrant, and she desperately needed police protection, in that moment, especially just after the massacre took place. And it was like 15 months after, in February of 1980, when 3 members of the Mills family, Al, Jeannie, and their 16-year-old daughter, Daphne, were murdered execution style inside their home in Berkeley, California. So this is still sort of the hub of operations in a way, as far as their influence and the scope of that specific network bringing Phoenix back home. But there was obviously no sign of forced entry. There was a burglary, right, which was obviously quickly ruled out as the motive. But the murders essentially created this fear that there were these temple hit squads. Effectively, these ex-members were supposedly avenging the deaths in Jonestown community against these potential evil actors or enemies of some kind, and had become activated or to some extent. But then you have the police turning their attention to this 17-year-old Eddie Mills, right, the son. And they basically say the son was in the house at the time of the shootings, but was left unharmed. Eddie claimed he was unaware that the killings had taken place, even though police found gunshot residue on his hands. So now there were Tim Stone, I think, came out and basically made a separate statement because he had even lived with the Mills for a short time. And he basically told FBI agents that once they completed their interviews with the Mills family, right, as essentially they killed the couple rather than let the family story leak, according to Tim Stone. He says the FBI agents who conducted and completed the interviews with the Mills family 2 days before the murder took place were actually the ones potentially responsible for killing the Mills family to quash the story. So that was never legitimately substantiated, but I think it was Jeannie and her family potentially being executed by the CIA was another theory that rose. And it was basically, along with George Moscone and Harvey Milk, which we do know those were priority targeted assassinations, and that this was not necessarily directly due to their former association with Jim Jones, but potentially due to their knowledge of his relationship with the agency, is what they were essentially claiming. And so it was in a way supported by essentially the book that the person, I think it was Michael Myers, wrote a book about this specifically. And I believe it was called 6 Years with God, or that might have been Jeannie Mills' book, actually, that she had written herself, if I remember correctly. But either way, that book specifically was essentially making these explosive allegations was bought and obscured by a newly formed publishing company that took it out of print almost immediately, and then the book itself ceased to exist as far as published literature, right? So it does make sense, and I will say that the initial investigation was basically shelved until 2005, and the police re-interviewed several surviving members of the Mills family, right? And they asked them to turn over any evidence they may have of Eddie's involvement. So family members answered police questions and basically maintained their belief that Eddie was innocent, but felt there's no evidence to turn over to officials. But then the reason for the basically renewed cold case investigation was essentially, unknown, because there was no new evidence that was uncovered, and no new forensics, technological evidence that was claimed to have been existing that would have led to this kind of reigniting of this case. But Eddie was later arrested in 2005, right, that same year, at the San Francisco airport. And basically he returned to the U.S. for the first time in several years, and this is when he gets arrested. He spends several days in the Redwood City jail before he's transferred to East Bay. And in December of 2005, the Alameda County District Attorney's Office declined to file charges, citing a lack of evidence and Eddie was released. He apparently had been living in Japan, and this is where he remains to this day, with the Mills family murder being unsolved. But the fact that he was there at the People's Temple Agricultural Project in Guyana before the massacre took place, and it only makes sense that they could have easily, activated a potential Manchurian candidate asset of some kind if he were among the group that were significantly programmed in that sort of way. And yeah, I mean, to have gunshot residue on your hands and no memory of what could have happened, and yet your entire family was gunned down in your home, it's a little hard to believe that story. And so I would, obviously this is all speculation, but I'm always interested in potential reinforcement of some kind. And the only thing that this alludes to in my mind is the potential reality that, what is it? You have post-hypnotic suggestion. You have no memory when you're triggered into an altar, right? That's what Paul Bonacci claims. And so that's what Regina Louf claims. That's what all of these individuals who have been legitimately, traumatized into this disorder have gone on the record saying that, what did Paul claim? He called it a trigger. He didn't even call it himself or a person, even though it had a name, because he had no memory of what took place whenever he was triggered into that alternate personality. He would just go through the motions, show up at the airport, like you said, and grab the plane tickets that only the alter knew were there. So that's possible that this kid, what did he say? What did Jim Jones would wake him up in the middle of the night? White night. Yeah. What if little Eddie, 17-year-old Eddie, instantly gets triggered by some sort of electromagnetic frequency of some kind, or even a microchip embedded in his molar or something? Who knows? And he just hears white knight and he wakes up like he's a Manchurian programmed assassin, just like the individual, right, who's the only person charged at Port Cayuma, right, the robotic Manchurian assassins who were described as much, basically, of the Red Brigade, hunting down each and every last person who came with Congressman Leo Ryan to brutally murder them in cold blood. So it's very clear and obvious what was happening in regard to this operation. But
it's a group called suicide.
Yeah. But look, whenever you have there was one connection to the Angolan mercenaries, right? Basically being transported to Guyana. And you have Guyana residents remembering on the record, going on the record, remembering 200 khaki-clad Black Americans as they frequented Georgetown's bars and whorehouses while on leave from their assignment in the interior. So apparently many of the weapons were smuggled into Jonestown amid the personal possessions and farm machinery of the People's Temple pioneers, is what they called them. Mercenaries were shipped to Jonestown, trained, instructed, and armed, and then flown from the airstrip in Port Cayuma to Angola. So that's the reason the airstrip even existed. So you have Jonestown, obviously was used apparently because Henry Kissinger had given the CIA orders to arm rebel groups in Angola. So that was the original reason that it effectively existed operationally. But the CIA was apparently subject to new legislation because of Congressman Leo Ryan. It was called the Ryan something Act or amendment. I can't remember now.
It's called the Leo Ryan Act. I think I remember.
I think it was supported by, it was like a mutual support sort of thing, and so it was like one other person signing on type of thing of prominence that supplied their name to it. But this new legislation basically was proposed by Leo Ryan and required the agency to account for all money spent for covert operations after congressional approval. So before a congressional authorization could be obtained, a covert program was needed, and the agency could not use its Cubans because they had green cards and could be traced to the U.S., which I thought was hilarious that was the context of the time, right? Well, damn it, we can't use the Cubans now, so I guess we have to pivot. And so you have CIA case officers in Brazil transporting mercenary recruits to the Brazilian coast, where Philip Blakey would pick them up in the temple ship for a 2 or 3 day trip to the Waney River, Port Cayuma, and on to the Shalom project at Jonestown. So Blakey, who obviously became one of Jones' top lieutenants, he managed the entire program apparently like a business. And under his command, there were 100 or up to 200 potentially special forces advisors, some of whom were on the People's Temple security staff. And the Brazilian mercenaries helped clear the jungle as part of their basic training. So that's why they were running, right? Those basically engaging in those.
Real quick, Austin. Let me back up and give an overview here for the people. I think it's a good way to understand this, or big picture here. So we have, in the years prior to the Jonestown incident, we have essentially this is owned by the federal government. This land, it's being used for training for the CIA and other such, operators to train Angolan mercenaries in regards to Operation Shalom. Then some things happen over in bureaucrat world. Things shift around. They say, oh, we need to dot our I's and cross our T's, and then the feds sell that land to some individual who's some sort of, I believe, looks like he has some CIA connections, and now it's being run by a cult. And now let's look at the before and after. Before, you're training mercenaries, so let's be real, it'll probably be a relatively smaller band of generally, probably typically white men with paramilitary training. And if you want to give him more nuts with it, if you really are doing CIA type stuff where you may even have some underlings, and maybe you're going to be training local populist people who will kind of be, your eyes and ears out there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe other spooky stuff happening there. And then, now it's a cult, and now we have the same, I guess to kind of cut through the niceties here, basically the same thing. You have this, so I think you kind of get what I'm laying out here. It's like, in essence, nothing changed is what it sounds like to some degree. So, yeah.
Exactly. And if anything, we just have further reinforcement of what we already expected to be the case, and have more than enough evidence, right, to make the claim that, this is a consequence of MK Ultra being driven underground, but it's far more than that. It's a reflection of what the metastasized nature of this cancer of the military-industrial complex and Operation Gladio, just in general. Because, I mean, if the scope of Gladio is, I know that we talk about it so often, but it's because it is still so very relevant. And I think the exact techniques exist to this very day and have never lost their value. And when you see, it makes sense, right? The British Black Watch and the Brazilian mercenaries being, running those weird training sessions, nearby when the People's Temple mass suicide took place, or mass murder. And, but a part of the allegations against Blakey are very much, I think, one of the most vital and sort of smoking gun avenues of evidence that you can point to prove that this was very much a staged operation in the scope of the CIA influence in Guyana. And this is a failed state that we propped up our own regime. And it's the name of the game, the reason why we exploited Chile for so long as well. This is just, Condor, Phoenix. We've talked about this. It's just a geographical component to the operational kind of, just the title that it's inevitably given. But anyway, allegedly to preserve the agency's cover, right? There were 2 camps that were established. This is before Jim Jones was even handed the keys to that property, right? He had already gone to Guyana. I think very much was a part of the CIA operational scope of this Shalom project. So he was well aware of what was happening. This is why he was waiting in the wings to be given this avenue of opportunity. So you have 2 camps being established, where apparently Blakey's was the main camp where the land was cleared. This would become the core of Jonestown. The second camp was an even more primitive outpost where the actual jungle training took place. Blakey's training camp required ultra sophisticated weapons and explosives not commercially available to the general public. So Deborah Layton Blakey, she acknowledged the fact that as the People's Temple financial secretary, was her role, they appropriated the money to purchase arms for her husband's project, right? So you have the People's Temple funding a CIA operation, right? So they've legitimately signed over their entire lives, right? Everything they've accumulated, and even power of attorney to Jim Jones, right? And he's turning around and siloing it and funneling that money right back into the agency's budget for this black op, which is effectively what's happening. So that, I mean, talk about financing your own traumatic, right?
It's like Trump with the Jews.
Yeah, basically. But anyway, this is the final point, and then we can pivot away.
Yeah.
But I thought it was fascinating, and obviously when you called earlier, you sent me back down that rabbit hole for a brief moment just to reflect again on what we know about Shalom, and exactly the scope in which it aligns to the Jonestown massacre. And apparently it was in 1975 when Blakey turned the training camp over to Jim Jones for the second part of the assignment, which was apparently, this was the Shalom Project, was the title it was given. So I think obviously this is a broader scope, but he's just claiming that this was the ultimate goal, was to effectively hand off the property to Jim Jones while also maintaining their influence and key stranglehold on exactly the operation at hand. So he turns it over in 1975 for the Shalom Project to take effect. And this apparently, what was necessary is state-of-the-art technology from cannabis centers in Mendocino County, California, right? That was what was being used, where Blakey did his internship to grow cannabis for what the CIA's head of the Angolan task force would describe as the, quote, hemp-smoking rebels that they were supporting. So they also basically alleged that the cannabis was also being grown for profit. So I think that it goes to show, right, when you have footage of the CIA legitimately cooking methamphetamine with the cartels and then giving it to the cartels to then facilitate across the border, it makes a lot of sense that there's underground tunnels from Tijuana to San Diego, right? I mean, did you see that? There's like a crazy footage of authorities in Mexico discovering this underground tunnel. Yeah, that just have, what's up, Jacob? That just that
was an accident.
But no, they legitimately. I don't remember if I bookmarked it or not, but if I did, I'll pull it in a minute. But anyway, it's crazy footage because it shows like a real pipeline from Tijuana to a very prominent street, apparently is the outlet in San Diego. And so I believe this is the name of the game as far as the kind of international, what's the term, as far as the just the apparatus, intelligence apparatus. It's basically the kind of status quo, par for the course, right? Yeah, this is what they do. And so to imagine they wouldn't have potentially grown illegal substances at the time to then profit from them and probably litter the streets of America with future drug crimes, which is essentially what was happening. Not to say that cannabis is at that threshold, but still, it's definitely has an adverse effect on society if you have just incessant drug laws that you're obviously attempting to, but anyway, I found all of that to again be yet another credible example of what exactly Jonestown was, and I think that's undeniable at this point. So, if you legitimately believe that this was all due to Jim Jones' personality and charisma, and that he had somehow inspired this group of black people to move to a remote jungle in Guyana because of his ridiculous philosophy and speeches, then you're just naive. you know, and
Well, it's because he
definitely
was a
have.
socialist, Austin. Okay, it rots your mind. Okay, don't
Mhm.
look any deeper. All right, guys, we're gonna go to intermission now. Sorry, we haven't had phone lines open for the bulk of the episode today. We will have them open after the break. For the patrons, obviously, the second half of the show is a patron interaction, but we are keeping the phone lines open as well. So. If you do want to call in, you can. What will that be? 1-833-722-3323 or 1-833-722-DEAD. We're a little bit different intermission today. I'm playing something a little bit different here because Jacob ran a little bit late, so I got something else ready. A little bit less of a musical presentation. It's a little bit more of a longer clip. But I figured it was an interesting little clip, and then also I want to get your thoughts on it, Austin, after the break. With that, guys, we'll see you in about 7 minutes. Enjoy this little intermission clip. Pretty interesting stuff from a actor over in Hollywood. We'll see you guys here in a few.
I moved to Los Angeles decades ago, okay? I'm not going to say anything because I don't want us to get sued. I stayed away from a certain church, a group of people, the whole time. There were some people, very attractive people always at parties or at bars would be like, hey, come on over here. It's really good. It'll help you organize your thoughts. It'll help. Or do you feel insecure about stuff? Do you feel like you've worked more? Like, come over. This will clear everything up. Of course I feel insecure. We all feel insecure.
Travolta's crew?
No. Don't say any names. Don't say any names.
Okay.
I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want anyone with cameras on their foreheads coming up to my door like bitty bitty bitty. I don't want that. Okay. That was something Dante said. That's not to the jury right now. That was something Dante said. I didn't say that.
Okay.
I stayed away from this crew forever and ever. Okay.
How long were you trying to be recruited?
I'll tell you how it happens. You're out at a bar. I am heterosexual-ish. And a young lady would come up to me, hot, and start talking, drinking, partying, young, friends. Hey, we're going to an after party. Let's go. Come on, girls. Go to an after party, going to a house, and you'll see some sort of signage or something for where you're going. And it's like, whoa. And literally they're like at the gate, like, it's okay. Come on. It's fine. It's not a big deal. What are you doing? Come back. And it's like, whoa, no. I'm not going in there. I can't afford this place. Okay. They take a percentage and I got an agent. I got a manager. I got a lawyer. Forget about it. Not to mention taxes. Years. I stay away from this crew. I stay away from it. I used to smoke cigarettes. Okay. I love cigarettes. Terrible habit, kids. Even vaping, like careful of that nicotine. It just catches you. They made it very hard to smoke. They had what's called a butt can. So when smoking became really bad, they would put a butt can like 100 yards away from that. And you'd have to sit there and just like, you'd have to run over when I got a break and just like chain like 2 ciggies, like, and it's like, and it's degrading and everybody's watching you and waiting and like, just sucking on that cigarette, you know, like just getting it in and it's degrading. You're just sucking it down, you know,
over a bucket,
over a sand bucket. Cause that's where you put your buttos.
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing there one day and I'm just like, I got a break and I run over and I'm like, you know, and muscular guy, young guy comes over. He's standing there and he's like watching me, like sucking my ciggy. And I go, hey man, you want a ciggy? Like, and you want someone else to smoke with you, you know? You don't want to be the only degenerate at work. And he goes, no, man, I don't smoke anymore. I quit. And I went, holy shit. Wow. How'd you quit? How'd you do it? How'd you do it, man? And he was like, I got the lasers. And I was like, what? Lasers? Like, you know, you hear lasers, satellite lasers, you get like excited. Like, I want to be like, yeah, that sounds like something that's interesting. Let me read the rest of this theory. Lasers? And he said, yeah. over in Santa Monica. Here's the card. Go. Do it. It's great. It's like laser treatment, and I haven't wanted a cigarette. I haven't wanted a cigarette since. So I call the place. I'm desperate to quit smoking. I'm desperate to stop standing over a butt can like, oh, give me a cigarette. Oh, Daddy, please. I go there. They give me a book, a binder, like this thick. Asking all kinds of questions. Sexual preference, desires,
Whoa.
most embarrassing moments. And I like kind of fill it out, but like, I withhold some information, some things I want to keep inside, and repress them. And I give like sort of as much as I can, and I hand the book over, and out of the back comes the hottest woman in a lab coat. Absolute smoke show. 11, 12, or 13. And she goes, okay, come back to the examination room, please, Jerry. Jerry will come. And I go back and I get in the room and I go, I sit down in the chair and I go, honey, she's like got a clipboard and a lab coat. And she's like, okay, thank you. So the smoking cessation lasers treatment will start soon. And I was like, well, honey, you're not a scientist. What? Who are you? What? First of all, I'm getting your number when this is done. But what is this place? Who are you? This is not real. You're not real. You're not a laser. Like I thought a guy, I hate to generalize and stereotype and assign gender, but I thought like Albert Einstein was going to come out of the back, And you guys are still with me, right?
Yes, yes. I enter my seat.
Loud and clear.
So I was like, what is this place? Who are you? She looked like a playmate. She was beautiful. Don't judge people physically. Beautiful. Dante, beautiful. And I was like, what is this place? Who are you? And then it fucking hit me. And I was like, oh my God, they must have leafed through my book, said, this is what he's going to react to. And I was like, you're a part of this large church, aren't you? And she was like, what? And I was like, unfucking real. I've lived in this town for 15 years and you never got me until right now. Tell me you're a part of that church. And she said, we are affiliated with that church. And I went, unfucking real. You got me. You got me in here. And you know what? They preyed on my weakness, on my smoking, on my sucking on cigarettes at that butto, sucking on them. And they got a guy who hook, line, and sinker. We have a magic cure, and it's with lasers. By the way, she went in the back. She came out with a toy gun. Was like, it was like a battery-operated toy from like Chinatown. Like, and I literally walked outside and just ripped the dome just right out there.
All right, we're back. What'd you think of that one, Austin? I know that's from where you're from, and sounds like I don't know. Maybe he's I'm assuming he's describing Scientology.
That's what I was thinking.
But my mind obviously goes to Process Church. But let's be real, it's the same thing.
Same thing at this point.
Yeah.
No, it's just it reminds me exactly of what we were just discussing as far as what they were claiming they set up a medical institution essentially as a potential viable avenue to procure new individuals into the group. But then, that obviously I think extends into the potential reality of programming a person without their knowledge and things of that nature and so I'm just thinking the exact same playbook of the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, and we all know the Process Church of the Final Judgment was very active on that exact same street, and Manson was introduced to their concepts and philosophy while he was spending time at the Haight. So this is definitely what they do. I think it would make a lot of sense if they're in the environment of substance abuse and addiction and trying to treat that specifically as like because I hear what people claim what is that psychedelic that essentially you can take and
Ibogaine?
Yeah, Ibogaine, I
Yeah.
believe it is. And there's I think there's one other, but it might just be Ibogaine that I'm thinking of, that you have like this terrible experience. You basically shit everywhere and throw up a bunch of times, and then within a day's time or something, you recover, and it basically short circuits your addiction. I'm not entirely certain. Restructures your neurological framework.
Last time, not last time, but I guess when I quit smoking a while back, I had shortly before then, I had been kind of toying around with larger microdoses because I had found, by the way, there's a loophole where you can get like shrooms online for like microdosing. There's like a legal loophole. It's like a religious thing. I'm totally religious. I'm a follower of whatever shroom church or whatever, but there's loopholes, and so I was able to get that. And I've just toyed with a little bit. I don't like being like inebriated on shrooms, like out and about, and I don't even really like getting like, it's like, who the hell like trips like crazy. But I've toyed a little bit with like the lower ones, and that was actually that was shortly after I quit. And I've noticed a few times I've just done little bouts. I've done like occasionally where I'll do like a couple of weeks where I'll maybe do like a large micro dose or something. For a period of time, and I've always noticed that like weird compulsive behavior shortly after seem to, like, things I would typically categorize as like destructive or non-productive at least tend to wane or disappear shortly after. So I think there is something to that. But yeah, anyways, not to get you far off field, but I guess I just want to provide an antidote example that like I do think there is something to that, but like obviously there's room for finagling and some tomfoolery there.
The mushroom church, it made me remember before it was entirely like decriminalized in a way out here, as far as in California, right? Basically, well, at least recreationalized, I should say. It was still in the medical stage, right? And basically, if you wanted to not have a cap on the edibles or even the product itself, let's say you wanted to grow like a few plants or something, you would have to get an additional grower's card and pay the state for an additional fee for that process and everything else. But what I thought was funny is that to actually get your hands on any of the better quality, higher quality cannabis, you had to join a cannabis church. So it was exactly the same process as far as like, this is the loophole. Essentially, you have to be a part of a cannabis cult to buy, as many edibles, whatever milligram level or, that sort of thing. And I just thought, it's hilarious because that is something that goes on some sort of archived record database, right? That will, I'm not saying that will in any way, hinder you in the future, but definitely, there's a record of that. And who knows, people could obviously exploit that point to some sort of thing. Like it sounded as if you were a member of a cult legitimately, right? Like if you read, they had a doctrine and everything. It was fascinating.
This is going to be something like decades from now when people are looking into like parapolitical lore on Austin Picard and Jose Galison. They'll be like, Jose was a member of the shroom, the mushroom cult.
For real though,
he's clearly a fed.
Hey, I'm just saying that it's kind of ridiculous that you essentially have to stoop to that level to even secure your what should be God-given rights, essentially as a human being, to utilize a substance that you can naturally grow from the earth. I don't know, that to me. Not as if modern weed is technically that category. Obviously, the George Soros weed, and everybody's getting cancer at this point, but chemicals are everywhere, so it's nothing new. But I did, what it reminded me of though is that hilarious story of it's not hilarious if there's any truth to it, but just the directed energy weapon concept, right? As far as like, now I do think those people who that video that you played of people who go get this strange sort of therapies and things of that nature, where they can rewire their brain essentially to no longer have that addicted pursuit or something. I forget how to explain it, scientifically or whatever, but it feels too much like it's let's just say, a stone's throw away from legitimate mind control, right? That's all I'm saying. And so, like, if maybe just figure out how not to abuse substances and at least rein that in as much as you physically are possible or capable of, and replace those things with something more healthy and beneficial to you and overall physically, like a workout regimen. All of those things, they matter. You know, they give you worth and self-worth and make you more confident anyway. It's like it all matters psychologically as well. So if you're fat and lazy, you're going to probably be rude and ignorant. It's very interesting how those go hand in hand so very often. So, you know, anyway, but it did remind me of that
people. That's what we're about over here on Already Dead.
Hey, man, that's right. It's Pride Month. I'm proud to fat shame everyone. And I just think it's so hilarious to see the ridiculous level of propaganda coming about. You know, it's just annoying as hell. The incessant kind of it's oversaturating propaganda, right? That is a little bit, I don't know, man. It's more than, you know, ethically insulting, I guess, in a way, because, you know, I'm not going to debate the ethics of being a gay person, but you know, it's just like
someone clip that.
Go on. But no, I just think that you know, if you're proud of your sexual orientation, you're fucking retarded. I'll just put it that way, right?
Yeah.
And you probably have no value as far as society is concerned in general. And so you're a part of the problem, you know, and when you're just among the herd marching in lockstep, parroting this ridiculous form of propaganda to destabilize modern society, what are you exactly achieving? You're proud of yourself now? You're going to wake up and post your Instagram stories as if you're declaring something of value? You know, it's like you have no moral high ground. Just stop talking. You know, and there's just so many people running their mouths, you know, with no ethical foundation to attach themselves to the ground. And yeah, so anyway, yeah, I'm not very much proud of anything other than, you know, but I will say that it reminded me of that hilarious story of this journalist, right, who was apparently investigating the New Mexico. She's a New Mexico journalist, right, who was investigating Zorro Ranch. And now that's what appealed to me more than anything, honestly, as far as just who the source was making the allegation. But so basically, she says this reporter who investigated Epstein, she's fleeing from the U.S. after allegedly being targeted by directed energy weapons. And this has legitimately been reported on, which I found interesting. A journalist, Alyssa Valdez Rodriguez, is fleeing the U.S. after alleging she was targeted by directed energy weapons due to her investigative reporting on Jeffrey Epstein's New Mexico compound, Zorro Ranch. So you have, this is a former Boston Globe and LA Times reporter, is who she is.
Okay.
So it's not like she's a nobody, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I was smiling. If people can see my face, because I was looking. I'll bring it up right now. I was just looking at just quickly online some of her sources of these, and it kind of be looking like bitches be dripping, to be honest. Here's some kind of red hands. It looks like she fell asleep in the sun.
That's why I was going to describe it as more of a fun topic to discuss. Yeah. But then I thought, well, if any of this has truth to it, I guess it's not that fun. But at the same time, she claims she suffered permanent injuries, right? So who knows? She says her symptoms were consistent with Havana syndrome. And she says this followed what she believed were attacks on her home office, prompting her to abandon her residence, move between safe houses while preparing to relocate abroad permanently. So she specifically says this involved pulsed energy from devices potentially operated by private military contractors, including a backpack-sized weapon placed near her roof and emissions from a semi-truck parked across from her home. Dude.
She's wigging out, looking out her window at fucking somebody with a little blower backpack thing or something, like one of the little landscaping Mexicans with his little backpack blower.
It's possible, but I will say this would be, I would imagine, how you could mobilize an operation like this, right? And we all know, right? Even local police can pull up to your home and essentially, broadcast using EMF. They have this aerial shot, a bird's eye view of your home where they can essentially track your movements, everything. We all know our Wi-Fi routers are now capable of this. Some German scientists just exposed that being a reality. I forget, it's basically biological ID, a technological system of some kind. I forget the name of it. But I mean, it's not far off from something that I believe they're capable of, right? So again, this is also how you stage a limited hangout and things of that nature. So we take it for what it is as much as we can. But I do think the more we have examples of this potentially being a possibility, the more details are provided. We can at least harken back to these examples and potentially come to some sort of loose conclusion on how we feel their technological advancement has evolved in this context. But so she says that this not only was it like basically emissions coming from the semi-truck, but she asserted these actions are retaliation directly from her unsubstantiated reporting on military intelligence connections to Epstein's operations and the surveillance of nearby U.S. nuclear weapons laboratories. So now no public evidence has been provided. So all we technically are relying on is her statement and these injuries that can easily be sort of dismissed in a way at face value, unfortunately. But apparently intelligence assessments regarding the Havana syndrome, obviously, it seems like this is legitimately a possibility. And I do think that as far as their capability, right, is concerned. And so I think there was one additional thing on this story that I thought was interesting. She said they are physical weapons plus psychological weapons, perfect to silence journalists and dissenters by making them seem bonkers, right? This is what she said personally.
Yeah.
It will never not disgust me that there are engineers who will lend their talent to designing things like this, operators who are willing to use them. Incredible and very sad. So I don't know what to make of this, but she says one last thing. They attack you at your most vulnerable and trusting, in your home, in bed, and do not kill right away. They plant pain and illness that can take years, months, weeks, days to kill, and do it in a manner intended to gaslight the target into doubting their own experience, as the pulsed energy can hit one person and not the others. So, man, this is something that's hard to not, especially the directed energy weapon claims from Venezuela that attack, right? They're claiming they were bleeding from the noses and vomiting blood and stuff after a sonic weapon attack allegedly occurred. We live in interesting times, and we can at least say modern warfare has taken a turn, right, into a very different environment. And I don't know, it's almost past and beyond science fiction at this point, but I didn't realize Jacob was up. Sorry.
All right, looks like we have a caller, Jacob.
Yeah, we do. It appears that first time caller. It's Brandon on the line. So Brandon, you're good to go, bud.
Hell yeah, Brandon, what's up?
Hey, what's up? How are you guys?
Doing good, good. What you got for us, brother? Usually we deal with a little bit of a delay with callers, so just get your question in and we'll get you out of here. Appreciate your time.
All right. Well, when my friend sent this to me, this looked kind of like a political show. I found it on r/Markiplier. Like, you know who Markiplier is?
I think so. Sort of familiar. Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, if this is sort of a political show, I've got a political question, but if it's not, I have a fun question.
I mean, it's more of a parapolitical / conspiracy, but we do touch on political sometimes, so I guess it depends on what your fun one is.
Fun question, dude. Yeah, I want to go with the fun one.
Yeah.
All right. What's your, I'll just combine them, actually.
Let's do it.
What's your opinion on, like, the data centers? Like, what do you think their real purpose is?
Ooh. Interesting. All right. Well, I appreciate you calling in. We're going to let you go. That kind of works out well. There was one more topic we wanted to segue on over to. That'll make it pretty damn easy. But you have a good one. Call in again sometime. I guess we'll talk a little bit about the data centers. What do you think, Austin? What do you think the ultimate plan for these data centers is?
I mean, we sort of touched on that obviously last week, just as far as the anti-tech extremism and new categorization that very much to me felt like a step in that very dystopian direction of what they will inevitably exploit for their own purposes. That's just a layer of the operation. Obviously, the data center project itself is much more invasive, and I think it basically, I'm not entirely certain what the end result of these massive data centers are in terms of the. All I know is so many people highlight the kind of just natural sort of consequence to the environment that they obviously are causing just to even fuel these data centers and things of that nature. So it will only have a negative effect in that context. And then beyond that, I just think they're foundational pillars in the dystopian mass surveillance system, and that obviously the totalitarian technocratic state hopes to structure around us. And so when we find ourselves, I think that UN sort of implemented, right, because the conspiracy theory was always that basically you would have this third-party military force of the UN coming into the domestic U.S. to effectively put individual dissenting voices in these dystopian prison camps of some kind. Now, I think the dystopian concentration camp exists in the digital realm at this point, and I don't think it's even technically necessary because of the Great Reset legislative action at hand of obviously eradicating private vehicle ownership and integrating the 15-minute cities concept into the infrastructure. All of that, hinges on this ability to obviously utilize AI in this fundamental sense to basically provide these software, just as far as these advanced technological software systems that are utilized in this kind of the flock camera surveillance psyop we were discussing as well. At every level, this is only going to further entrench that concept of the digital gulag. And so I legitimately do think that it potentially kind of evolved into not being very necessary to have a physical concentration camp for your political dissenting voices or activists or whatever you want to call them, schizo bros or already deadheads. But
yeah.
Anyway.
All right, we got Beans Fernandez joining us, one of the patrons, a new one. A new one joins the fold of the private chat, the exclusive non-pores chat we have back here. You guys are always welcome to join. Beans, it's a pleasure to have you with us. I don't know. You asked them if you could come up, and I think they misunderstood you, like you wanted to come up for this topic. So I don't know if you have anything to contribute to the data center thing. Otherwise, we'll go down a different route. But I generally kind of agree with Austin. I do think there's a little bit of an interesting discussion, real quick, to give an answer to the previous person. I do think there's an interesting discussion, and I think a lot of these are going to go tits up, economically speaking. So I think a lot of this is going to be a little bit a scare tactic and but I mean, they're going to do their best to exploit this new technology that's being used, that I also think is being kind of over-invested into. But being as a new technology, they're doing everything they can, being as these are the predator class, not the innovation class. So they have to use their power to the greatest of their ability to try to get whatever foothold they can in the door ahead of everybody else, because they're, from the jump, they're going to be slipping because they just are not able to operate as efficiently with utilizing force. So if they can get using their powers of consolidation of the state to get their hands on some of these things, or even put in IP laws for some of this stuff to prevent the proliferation. Kind of the AI race is a good way to look at it, kind of like how it's going with the other countries. So
I think operating domestic drone systems is, I don't know how vital those data center operations are for potentially, running the AI driven a drone operation out of these I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe that's very much waiting in the wings as well. And before too long, we're going to have domestic drones flying in our airspace over above our homes on a frequent basis, I would think. But who knows? Hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, it reminded me though of the AI data center proliferation within the clause of the 2027 NDAA, right? That they're obviously beginning to exploit, and this is essentially going to fuse the U.S. military with Israel's, not just the IDF, but the Israeli military at large, and it's like Section 224 of the NDAA. And it's super fascinating when I was reading into it. But I do want to say, just to preface it, is I was discussing, like we touched on it briefly on Sunday, me and Sam and Brad, on whatever this is, and basically we kind of just concluded to the fact that all of these escalating, theaters of war are very much kind of a product of just the oligarchy at hand here at large, and very much just the normal process that an oligarchy will essentially stoop to in order to, it was described as the mechanisms of self-preservation, because I discovered this concept just trying to, promote the episode. And I realized I had never actually been introduced to this individual by the name of Walter Gropius is his name. And he basically founded this school in Weimar, Germany in 1919. And it was like supposed to be this revolutionary institution that unified art, design, technology, and it was forced to move and uproot to Dessau in 1925. And this is where Gropius designed this building that's deemed iconic, apparently, before he was forced to close by the Nazi regime in 1933. So he has a very strange, I'm not entirely, referencing this individual as if he's someone to immortalize in any sort of heroic way. I don't know who this person really is, but I did just think as a kind of early introduction to his philosophy, I did find it very interesting and could see where it could also be, misused and misappropriated and misinterpreted. But he inevitably, I guess, immigrated to the U.S. and taught at Harvard. So it goes to show he's not very trustworthy in that in that context. But he had this Bauhaus philosophy that he basically, the claim is that this philosophy profoundly influenced global modernism. And so obviously I have my own qualms with modernism and things of that nature as far as just the philosophy itself. But apparently he also was a very vocal critic, right, of just like the natural process of how oligarchy is formed over time. And so he had like this strange, political theory is basically what it was. And it's called, this is something that he embraced, but it was called the Iron Law of Oligarchy. And it was a sociologist named Robert Michels, right, who originally kind of introduced this concept in like the early 1900s, like 1911 or some shit. And it was a book called Political Parties. And he goes into, in his theory, that all complex organizations, regardless of how democratic, right, this is interesting as far as eventually they develop into an oligarchy. And so he says he observed that since no sufficiently large and complex organization can function purely as a direct democracy, power within an organization will always be delegated to individuals within that group, elected or otherwise. And as he wrote in his book, Political Parties, he said, it is organization which gives dominion of the elected over the electors. Who says organization says oligarchy. And I just thought, this is why I'm fundamentally opposed to collectivism, man. This is why, I try to remove myself from the ideological paradigm that imprisons me into this limited concept of what reality is. And that is by design, right, in every way. And so if you are beholding to a strange, preordained outcome in terms of your ideological framework, you're being had. You're right. Like, I think the fix is in, right? And unfortunately, you've swallowed that poison pill, and now you're effectively, pursuing, essentially facilitating a dystopian agenda subconsciously, which is, I think, the end result of all ideological systems in their modern form. If they're not rebuking and rejecting the state in their foundation, then I kind of have an issue with that, but it's hard for me to grapple with. But anyway.
Oh, sorry. I was just about to. Sorry, I thought you were about to take a little break. I was about to bring Beans in here. Go ahead. What else you got?
Oh, I'm sorry, dude. I didn't even realize, man. I'm over here. I'm just reeling on this philosophy because
you forgot about the computer screen in front of your face. What's up, Beans? What you got?
What's up, boys? I was letting it go, dude. That was a rant of biblical proportions, and I'm gonna have to listen back to it to really take it all in. But Jose, you were talking about the data centers. It didn't have anything to do with that, but to be completely honest, I think it's just going to be like I think it's going to fail in a very similar way to the internet bubble in a weird sense, where the amount of money that they're going to pump into this thing and the amount of money that you have to push into getting all of the data sets and all of the information, I think ultimately like the economics of it don't make sense.
It may even die in infancy with the Iran war stuff going on. I guess not to get off kilter, but all the different Gulf countries, those are the ones most heavily invested in all of our AI shit over here.
Yep.
And we're really fucking them over hardcore with the Iran stuff, the Gulf countries, because we're just so cleaved to Israel that anything Israel needs, like, yeah, we sort of care about the other Gulf countries that are allies, but I mean, if it comes to prioritizing Israel or them, Israel gets the W every time, and I think they're not digging it, and it's really fucking them over energy-wise, financially, kind of fucks up their whole shtick of being, kind of this tropical paradise over in the fucking, over in the Middle East, and meanwhile they're getting bombed, so.
100%, and honestly, it may even be a conversation that's more geared towards, like, Jose, like, more towards your podcast than, like, for this one. But I just think the economics of it don't make sense. Our state in the world doesn't make sense for what we're trying to do for AI, even if it is for a surveillance state. The money aspect of it doesn't make sense. But ultimately, I kind of wanted to hop in. Austin, I'm big fan of both of you guys. I'm always in your chat for the underclass, sharing book recommendations and all that kind of stuff. But Jose, you brought up a big thing earlier, and when I heard it, like my Austentism kind of perked up, where I was like, I wanted to get your opinion. I grew up in Jupiter, Florida, around basically the whole Epstein thing. My cousin was somewhat mildly asked to be recruited into the whole thing. I have some friends that I grew up with that were in that whole scene, and Jose, you brought up earlier about the Brock Pierce thing with the gold Trump statue.
Oh my
God. I jumped in a little bit late on this, so I don't know if you guys already brought that up, but that really fucked me up. And I kind of wanted your opinion on that one, Austin, because I know, Jose, you kind of spoke about it a little bit earlier. So
what?
On Brock
this is what I'm going to do.
The Brock Pierce gold Trump statue, him cutting the ribbon immediately before his son-in-law or his son marries into the Epstein circle, whatever you want to call it. It fucked me up, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I saw an edit from Blunts for Jesus that was dedicated to Brock Pierce, and it was last week, I think it was, and I made a note instantly that I wanted to cover it on a segment for Already Dead. So how about next week, I will be fully prepared to discuss Brock Pierce and the integral connections to what that individual represents. And also, I think overall, it's a reflection on the network, because just the prominent nature of who these people were and what they're responsible for. I mean, this guy is foundational in terms of the crypto world. Much more than that.
Child actor turned billionaire, politically connected.
Crazy.
It's like,
tied in with the war room.
Like, come on. Like, we know. We know what's happening here.
Sexual abuser, he's a monster,
It fucked me up.
It's crazy. So I'll dedicate a segment to you for this very purpose to discuss Brock Pierce next week.
And it may make you feel even better. I already have a few things bookmarked because I was like wanting to look a little bit deeper into Brock Pierce because I've never really taken too deep of a look into him. So,
Yeah.
so it might even be tomorrow on the dump, honestly. So
if you can throw out some dead entertainment, it's always welcome.
Hell yeah, brother.
Well, all right, Beans, we're going to bring John Black in here unless you got something else for us, and I think Black will be our last one in here for the night, and then we'll take her in for a landing. You got anything else for us, Beans? Pleasure to have you here for the first time.
Yeah, no, we're all good, man. I'll catch you guys next week, and I appreciate you having me.
Hell yeah, brother. We'll see you in the next one. Let's get John Black up in here, that beautiful bastard. I know we said we don't like fatties, but we'll bring this one up. I'm just kidding. You're a big boy. What's up? You're a beautiful bastard is what you are. What's up, John?
Listen, I don't mind being called a fatty because here's the thing. On my frame, I can drop 25 pounds in a week. So it's not a problem.
Are you a tall boy?
Oh yeah, I'm 6'2".
Oh shit! Okay, you're a big boy.
Yeah. No, nobody's gonna notice. When I came back in town, I had lost 15 pounds. My wife didn't even notice. So whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, 10 pounds is nothing. That's a dump.
So what's interesting is Peter Thiel moved to Argentina.
Yeah.
And it's a nothing burger, right?
Sort of. Maybe a little bit, but yeah.
But I came across this map, and it showed where all the inner continental ballistic nuclear warheads could possibly land, and the fallout radiuses of them would be, right? Guess which country will not be touched by a nuke?
I saw people pointing that out as well. I thought that was interesting.
Okay, so it's a nothing burger if we believe nukes are real. Okay, and I understand the people that think nukes aren't real. That's cool. There's people that think the world is flat. It's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All love to the globies and the flat earthers. All right, now about the data center thing, and Jacob can kind of back me up on this since he's the beware of the mockingbird guy. So, the asshole that is building the data center in Utah?
Yeah.
And he was on one of the Slopaganda
Shark
channels.
Tank guy, right?
Shark Tank guy, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was on one of the Slopaganda channels, and he had this whole graph because apparently all of their socials were getting flooded with negative feedback on data centers, right? So immediately, since he's the Shark Tank guy and he's the asshole on the Slopaganda channel, he had, some data analysts collect the IP addresses.
Kevin O'Leary, I think is
Kevin O'Leary. Yeah. He's a bald fuck, whatever. Somebody check his physiognomy. I don't know whether he's Jewish or not. The mustache guy will tell us. So he had this whole flow chart of these IP addresses on the Slopaganda channel, and it was all Chinese bots.
John,
okay,
he considers himself a quote honorary Jew. Because he grew up in a Jewish environment and appreciates Jewish values.
That's fine. I mean, if he wants to lick the wall's butthole, it's June. Go ahead.
He attended temple as well, apparently, and was influenced by Jewish cultures during his upbringing. So he's Jewish.
I'd be interested in his schooling. I forget the name of it, but there's this there's this entity, and I believe it's particularly Yale. I think. Isn't that where JD went? Because there's implications that he was perhaps part of this organization. There's an organization that's like literally has regular meetings there where you're quite literally a Shabbos Jew. Or a Shabbos Goy. It's a
Ohio State.
Yeah. Like
he went to Yale. Yeah, he went to Yale Law.
There you go. Yeah, it was Yale. It's Yale that has that entity. And for the name of it, some Jewy sounding name.
Skull and Bones too, brother.
No, well Skull and Bones is there. I was trying to think of the name. I'm gonna think of the name later. But anyway, sorry. I just want to point that out. There is actual entity where you literally, this is how you become politically connected. Vivek Ramaswamy was part of it. Is this group? I believe he was the first Hindu. He was the most notable for being the first Hindu as part of this group, where they literally meet with like rich Jewish individuals, and I believe the guy who runs the entity is like, what's he like the runs the organization that's like the largest donator to, it's like the Friends of the IDF or whatever, like that guy, like anyways, so whatever, back to you, John.
So now we have, you tied it back into the reptile and him financing JD Vance, and he's not going to be a presidential candidate from what I understand. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. But with this guy saying that it's all Russian propaganda, I'm not all Russian, sorry, mixed up the red. It's all Chinese propaganda. And then for some reason, Bernie Sanders is now saying, we need to sell half of the AI. We need to confiscate as the government half of the AI and then donate that to schools. And then, of course, tax the other half of the AI. So, like, I don't know what to think about this. Like, I know it's Slislop. I know that the dots connect to where, they want the public to be thoroughly confused, subverted against it, and in favor of it all at the same time. So, like, the whole dialectic here is in play from, on all of the different generations. Most of the people with their third eye and their pineal gland opened up are going to be like, hey, we're against this just because it rapes natural resources. And then, of course, some people are going to be against it because we're using it to, I don't know, blow up schools and kill children.
Yeah.
I don't. And it's being subsidized with our stolen dollars. I mean, tax dollars. And it's just, the whole thing is another mechanism to divide us, another mechanism to strip our liberty, and another mechanism to collect all of the possible personal data that they can collect on us via spying through our devices, the proliferation of the cameras that are going up, all of the different mechanisms that are in play now. We are also on the verge of having AI speech laws, to where you can't speak out against it. So AI may just be Jewish right now, and we just don't know about it yet. So, like, I mean, I don't know. It may be Ashkenazi. Maybe that's what the A stands for. I don't know. But it is a complete boondoggle, and I don't see it necessarily being nefarious in nature. But just like everything else, it's been weaponized. Like every other advance in technology, it's been weaponized against us. Like the other guy said, he was talking about the internet bubble. Even if you take it back to cars, cars subverted us economically because of the roads, so there's, and air travel subverted us, because of the TSA. So, like, with all new technology, yeah, there's advancement. Yeah, it can be, used for the greater good. But will the people that have the most money use it to subvert the underclass? More than likely.
I'm with you, buddy.
By the way, sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes there. I did want to give a follow up because while we were after I dropped that little bit about Yale, I was like, fuck, what's the name of this? I need to find more detail. That was sloppy. My bad. It's the Shabtai Society. It's a Jewish leadership society based at Yale University, is what I was telling you guys about. Like I said, I believe Vivek was the first Hindu to be part of this group.
Kevin O'Leary was a member.
No. I don't know if Kevin Leary was. I was just joking because he was saying he was like an honorary Jew, or he felt like an honorary Jew, or whatever. And I was like, I wonder where he went to school, and that's the kind of what I was getting at. Like if he was some Shabbos goy.
JD a member of that?
I don't know if he officially was, because I don't think there's something that, like, lists their members. I know I have seen stuff about Vivek that seems pretty like confirmed. I believe there's. I don't know if they rise above rumors of JD, but it kind of seems that's the case. And like I said, the guy, it's named after Benny Shabtai. That's the name where the name of the group came from. And Benny Shabtai is an Israeli like businessman with a significant amount of money, really rich motherfucker. But he is also, well, I don't know if he currently is, but he definitely was at some point the director of Friends of Israel and has been a board member for a long time, or Friends of the Israel Defense Forces, which is the largest charity to the IDF. I guess it's weird that's a charity, and which is I believe it's even it's applicable for all the charity stuff here in the United States, is my understanding. Yeah.
He's very intertwined with all of the things that are going to lead to that whole 224 movement. Like if you look at all his history, like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that guy is intertwined with all of the subversion of the US government through putting in, toy soldiers, so to speak, to just take orders for this kind of stuff.
Palantir's military application to their drone systems, and like specifically in Ukraine, obviously, now not isolated to just Ukraine, but just as an example, like not only is it mass surveillance for intelligence gathering purposes, militarily speaking, for strategic reasons, but they essentially, and Palantir had like, you remember the merger, essentially the merger with the Department of War to fundamentally create a massive database on domestic Americans, right? American civilians. And that will only be put to, I would think dystopian use, right? But still you have this AI assassination surveillance system that is basically Palantir's in collaboration with the Department of War. And I just think there is a time where this could effectively come home domestically, just in terms of domestic warfare playing out, even in the context of Elon Musk saying we should drone the cartel members, essentially. But Palantir, they have this software called Prisma, Prisma, and it's ongoing and actively running inside of Ukraine, right? These Ukrainian long-range drone strike command posts are actively utilizing this software. And it was confirmed officially on a segment on CNN, who filmed inside one of these units that were planning kamikaze drone strikes, right? That just met this major escalation where Putin basically gave an ultimatum to Trump, allegedly. I don't know. It seems pageantry to me, but still, you had a major escalation on both sides where essentially you had, it wasn't isolated to only drone attacks, but still major drone attacks that reached territory within Russia far deeper than ever before. And so it's these long-range drone systems that Palantir is essentially, providing to the Department of War, but also is apparently utilizing this Prisma software for the, essentially this assassination software system. But so you have screens on this segment. They showed screens with real-time maps, flight paths, AI process data overlays, while a mass commander vector walks through the strike planning live. The AI for this system specifically ingests thousands of parameters, crucially including where Russian air defenses are intercepting drones, and then calculates optimal routes for the next wave to slip through the gaps. So it is strategically poking holes in Russia's air defense system net, technically, right, in real time. And that is something that I thought was fascinating, obviously, and just considering, discussing Peter Thiel's relocation as if that really, I think there's something to it. There's obviously a reason for it, but to what extent, I have no clue. But my God, man, before we leave, I just wanted to talk briefly about the NDAA, but, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
I guess one last night. Well, let's kick John Black out of here so we are not keeping him for that. Appreciate you, John, but we're going to kick you out of here, brother. I did want to give it. Yeah, it's okay. I just didn't want to keep you out there in the corner like it's some weird cut corner while we go on like another 20-minute rant. But I did want to put one little note on the thing because one of you guys asked if J.D. Vance was a member of the Shabtai Society. So I looked it up real quick just to double check. I couldn't find anything to confirm him, but there's Vivek is basically confirmed. We also have Cory Booker, Noah Feldman, Elbridge Colby, Michael Knowles. That's from one Shabbos goy to another Shabbos goy. And now I think, we don't know JD was, but it is worth reminding everybody that Vivek was like his best homie in college, up until the point where they literally named their child after Vivek. Their child's name is Vivek. So
that's so crazy.
But anyways, you want to talk about the NDAA, which kind of ties a little bit into our cyber type of technology discussion we were having, since this is essentially the merging. This is essentially the dwarfing of, was it John? I almost said Jackson Pollard, but that's a painter, isn't it? Who's the fucking Israeli spy? Right. You know what I'm talking about. Pollard? Right?
Yeah, I think you got it right, actually.
Was it Jackson?
I'm pretty sure.
Who am I thinking of? There's an artist with a similar name or the exact same name, and I think I'm mixing them up.
Pollard.
Jonathan Pollard.
Yeah. My bad.
Okay, I think Jackson Pollard. Isn't he the one who does like the weird ones where they splash the walls?
Right.
Yeah.
Hey,
okay. Anyways,
Shut the fuck up and get me out of the cuck chair.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you were still in the cuck chair. I thought Jacob took care of it. That's. But anyways, see, you're out of the cuck chair. God, what were we just talking about? It threw me off.
I can't remember. Jonathan Pollard. Pollard, right?
Yeah, so anyways, the NDAA thing. So I was segueing the NDAA thing. Essentially, as I said to you earlier, it looks like what Jonathan Pollard did, essentially one of the greatest spies of our era, giving United States secrets over to Israel. Well, it looks like we're getting ready to dwarf that with the approval of Congress, possibly. So, yay. So off to you, Austin.
Yeah, no, I just think I saw Stu Peters comment on this, and occasionally some of these people say something I agree with, obviously. And he said basically that the Jewish billionaires who own Trump have forced the American military merger with Israel. American munitions, intel, and service members are now Israeli property. The United States is a money and blood bank to be drained for the conquest of greater Israel. And I just appreciated that sentiment. What Jackson Pollock is what you were saying.
Yeah, Pollock,
what you were thinking about.
That's what it is. Okay, that's what I was mixing up with. But go ahead. Yeah.
But yeah, what I thought was fascinating is that, and it kind of merges with the iron law of oligarchy in a way, right? As far as the discussion we were having briefly earlier. And so as we're all being distracted by the most over emotional appeal to trigger our essentially blurred vision, no one's really focusing on the fact that apparently buried in the House's version of this 2027 NDAA that was released on Tuesday, basically, is Section 224 that's entitled United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative. So this provision would apparently do basically significantly it would intertwine the U.S. military with the Israeli military, then basically far more than just the $200 billion, in military assistance that we consistently provide to Israel. I think that's ever since the foundation of Israel itself, obviously. And so Section 224 basically lays the groundwork for bilateral research and development, co-production of weapons, joint ventures, licensing agreements, and basically every other manner of U.S.-Israeli military-industrial complex cooperation. So the U.S. and Israel, now they clearly are in collaboration on missile defense and things of that nature, but this provision would basically expand the coordination to seemingly every area of defense technology, including AI, quantum, autonomous systems, directed energy, cyber, biotech, and many more. So it also proposes network integration and data fusion. Apparently, this essentially means that the U.S. military's data could soon be the Israelis' military's data. So talk about a merger, right? As far as just even merging intelligence and data gathering in terms of the military and strategic outcome of that potential collaboration. So if fully enacted,
it'll save Netanyahu the trouble from getting the information from Peter Thiel. Skip a step. Yeah. Might as well cut out the middleman,
Mm-hmm. So apparently, if this NDAA and this provision specifically is fully enacted, the proposal will provide a higher level of military-industrial integration than the U.S. has ever had with any other country in the world. And obviously, I think it was essentially the U.S. providing weapons to foreign buyers and things of that nature, who only occasionally make parts for those weapons themselves. And they use the case of the F-35's global supply chain and things of that nature as like essentially the boondoggle of the arms dealer, right, within the concept of the military-industrial complex. So to end this, you have Section 224 essentially fusing the U.S. and Israeli defense sectors in many different areas vital to the battlefield, right, of modern warfare. So autonomous systems and cyber. Also, Israeli influence, the U.S. would essentially bring in a network of social media influencers. So, as if they haven't already done this, but still, to cement this in a legislative action of some kind is just, it's extraordinary. Extraordinary measures. It's hard to even internalize, honestly, but it would give the Israeli government basically an opportunity to greatly expand their level of influence basically within the scope of the U.S. domestically. And apparently they already have co-production facilities in Mississippi and Arkansas, and the Israeli government could apparently claim that they're providing jobs on U.S. soil, basically securing many different sort of individuals who would go to bat defending this type of policy, right? And congressional representatives and things of that nature. So basically, this is an unprecedented level, right, of military integration with the Israeli military specifically, and defense cooperation and things of that nature. But you have basically a Quincy Institute brief that was authored by Stephen Simon, and it's called "The Shift from an Aid Model to a Military Integration Model," and he talks about the implications of this. And this is the final point. It's basically that the shift will strip away the political, and I thought this was an amazing sentiment as far as the overall reaction to this, just again, dystopian measure being taken in real time. He says the shift will strip away the political and diplomatic oversight mechanisms that make the relationship publicly accountable, moving it from a visible annual aid vote into the opaque machinery of defense acquisition, where oversight is limited and political accountability is minimal. The result would be a defense relationship that is simultaneously deeper and less transparent. And this all comes at a time when the Israeli military has repeatedly used U.S. weapons in strikes that have violated international humanitarian law, not only in Gaza, in Lebanon. I mean, they're legitimately bombing suburbs. They bombed a school this morning, I think it was. And Israel, them, specifically has repeatedly violated these ceasefire and especially these negotiations or attempted peace proposals, which we all know are disingenuous if we're paying attention. But this is an unnecessary war. And yet again, I think, as we said last week, they will exploit this as much as they possibly can, and it could very easily turn into an Afghanistan style fool's errand, right? You could say. So this is a boondoggle. War is a racket, and I think just realizing what effectively the consequences are. I mean, not only are we. And I saw Douglas McGregor, right? Basically, he went on the record just before the more recent strikes happened, just after the major fallout from the Beirut strikes in Lebanon, things of that nature, and Iran pulled out and the ceasefire collapsed or whatever. That's, the notion. And I instantly saw, just after Colonel Douglas McGregor was claiming that essentially you had an example of basically the Israeli military. Essentially, you had Israel privately pressing, I think it was the Trump administration, Trump personally, to kill Iran's lead negotiator and launch new strikes. You saw that, right? And that was just after I read that. I saw I saw these strikes ensue, and I believe it was the U.S. military bombed Iranian radar command and control centers and things of that nature. And Iran,
I think they even characterized them as defensive strikes.
They did. It was so disgusting to actually watch the Fox News report from Jesse Waters. It was like straight out of 2003, man. It was the Iraq war all over again. He said, officials say the Iranians are living in caves and are not using email. How do you hash out a deal with a band of pirates living underground? I mean, like, he's acting like this is straight up the Taliban, you know? And anyway, there's just one final note that I was hoping to make is that the cost of war, right? You see what Itamar Ben-Gvir came out and basically said outwardly before this major strike on I believe it was a school for disabled children early this morning in southern Lebanon.
School for children who can't read very good, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What is
Sorry,
this,
I shouldn't make that joke right now.
It's funny though. But yeah. I mean, this was, described as a self-defensive strike, and it legitimately took out a school. So just to know that Israel is in the midst of legitimately dropping white phosphorus bombs on civilian regions and civilian targets within Lebanon, and these are internationally banned munitions. I mean, this is not debatable at this point, right? As far as being used on civilian casualties. And I saw a Chinese state television report, so take it for what it is, obviously, but it was broadcasting in front of Gaza, right, the Shifa hospital. And this woman, this news reporter, she says, I saw with my own eyes that there were at least 10 Palestinian children under the age of 5 without heads, right? And I mean, when you called me earlier, we discussed just a little bit about that strange forum where they legitimately admit and acknowledge the fact that it is normal status quo, par for the course policy to lock girls in cages to be raped by dogs and then pass these young victims around at celebration events and EID celebration events or something was what they were called. And this is what we're paying for. Our taxpayer dollars are facilitating this sort of just disturbing and the most sinister form of how you should engage in any sort of conflict if you claim to be on some sort of ethical high ground. But I'm really at a loss at this point, man, when it comes down to the overall, again, I've said it many times, but this boils down to a blood ritual sacrifice at the altar of the imperial war machine. So I'm never surprised at this point. So anyway, buddy, I'm ready to go if you are.
Yeah, me too. With that, we'll dig into the muck again another week from now, where you guys can hang out with us on another Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. You can call in. With that, Austin, where can people find you at?
Yeah, everybody check out the Underclass podcast. Definitely subscribe to the Rumble. And we just put out episode 59 of whatever this is. So it was fun as always. And I think tomorrow, me and Jacob are going on with William Ramsey to talk Satanic Panic. So that'll happen tomorrow afternoon, I think. And then, Thursday we're going to talk Waco, right? We're going to finish that Waco weirdness part 2 off, or whatever part we're on. But we'll definitely conclude on this one, I promise. And then on Friday, I believe it's part 2 with Thomas from Paranoid American. We're going to talk a little bit of Project Monarch and Columbine, and it should be a lot of fun. So definitely check all of that out. Hopefully have some big news coming as well, but I'm keeping it, in the vest, close to the vest at this point. But I love you guys, and I appreciate you, brother, as always, man.
Love you too. I don't know what it is, to be honest. Just so you guys know, I'm waiting anticipation as well. But I hope it works out, whatever it is, and I look forward to seeing whatever it is. Always cool seeing you do big things. For those who want to support what I'm doing over here, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes and Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well. On Twitter, that's at Tower Gang Jose. Everywhere else, it's the No Way Jose podcast. At the low level of $2, you can support the show if you'd like. over at patreon.com/nowayjose2020. That $2 level gives you a whole host of perks, gives you access to early episodes. Or try to do about 1 to 2 of those per week. Try to keep about 3 to 4 of them behind the paywall at any given time. Give you guys access to the ad-free RSS feed. Give you guys access to Telegram and the pre-show, post-show, and video calls on this show right here, Already Dead, on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern every week. And I also give a big shout out to the highest level of my Patreon. It's a big thank you for their support. The sponsor level, my previous co-host entire gang, at Leonard Toad, also at Brigade D's, at ZVRCK, at _ the Zeal, Tim Tell, at John Klebo, big fan of the show, Torn May, at Wayne Techless, One Undercover Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, Jacob Wintergrad at Biblical Anarchy Podcast, and John Black, that beautiful bastard. And with that, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.